Welcome back to Unscripted, where the story behind the journey matters most. I'm your host, Leslie Mota, and this show is sponsored by WagMe. Tonight, we're back for part two with Ezquire. In our first conversation, we spent a little bit of time getting to know him, and we briefly tapped into the world of sports, entertainment, contracts, negotiations, but not really, just a little bit, and some of the realities happening behind the scenes in those industries. But there was so much more to unpack that simply we ran out of time. So tonight we're picking up where we left off and diving deeper into creator rights, intellectual property, digital ownership, emerging technology, maybe. Who knows? We'll see what we get into. And of course, the experiences that have shaped his perspective along the way. Esquire isn't just an attorney. He's a creator, advocate, a commentator, a community builder, and someone who has spent years navigating the intersection of sports, culture, business, and innovation, and much more. Behind the legal expertise is a person with his own story, his own lessons, and a unique lens on the world around him. So, tonight we're continuing the conversation, exploring the topics we didn't get a chance to cover the first time and getting to know the man behind the name, aka Mr.
What's up?
Esquire.
What's up? How are you doing?
Drum roll.
It's good to be back. It's good to continue the conversation as always.
Well, thank you for coming back. Did you notice we were having technical
No,
difficulties?
I didn't. I was always vibing to the background music that was kicking in. The countdown is a vibe.
Oh my god, we counted down twice.
I think I might have
The
saw it
first
reset.
time it
I
wouldn't
only knew
go.
because the music swapped, but it's all good.
Yeah, it's like the go live button was not working. It just did not want to start. And we're like, no, I was like, do not do this to me. Not
You
today.
gotta upgrade from that T-Mobile internet.
Oh, shoot. The Arizona, I'm in the desert. It's like that busted mobile.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Uh,
No,
but, last show that you were on, we only were able to chat briefly, about 30 minutes or so. And we were able to talk a little bit about roots and identity, and who you are, your background, who is the man behind the name, the man that's doing everything. And, we had some questions and the audience got to know you a little bit. And, you are from St. Louis. And you talked about the experiences that shaped you, moments in your life that, you question whether you truly belong in certain rooms. And discussions in regards to what success means to you, when you were younger versus what it looks like now. But now I want to tap into a little bit the human side of law. It's like,
not much
you
of
working in the industry, not much of it. What do you mean? Tell
No,
me.
I mean, I think one of the things I tell people all the time is that I don't really like being branded as a lawyer. It's like a skill
Yeah.
set. It's something that I can do, but it's definitely not who I am. And I think, I see that my father is an attorney, also my brother's an attorney, but it's one of those. My grandfather was actually a lawyer, so yeah, there's a lot of lawyers in my family. I even have an adopted cousin who's a lawyer, so all of us got the bug. But it's one of those things where I think what I dislike about the legal world in a lot of the traditional ways that it's used is that it it gives you a power, which is a good thing. But a lot of attorneys, the same way that people flex, if it's money, if it's whatever, there's attorneys that flex because they think they're smarter than everybody, and it's like they're kind of it's like they know that they exist behind a wall of like knowledge and court systems and all these different things, and they just don't operate like human beings sometimes. And I think what I've seen with a lot of negotiations and other things that I've done is like so many people forget the humanity in it. I was a criminal defense lawyer when I first started. So this is like I knew I wanted to be an agent, and I was coming out of law school. I had interned in the UFC's legal department, so I lived out in Vegas for a while. And when I came back, it was like, all right, I got to go take the bar, did that. And then I was practicing with my father for a couple years, and like we kind of butted heads a little bit because he's a man of the people for sure. Like he was a civil rights attorney. He's a white dude, left all his money and, things behind in New York and moved to St. Louis and like kind of started fresh, brand new. And I think, it was unique for me because he was just so old school, and I was kind of coming from part of the reason I got into the whole crypto world, which is a whole nother story, is just that like growth mindset. And he was so stuck in his ways
Yeah.
of like how to practice and how to do this. And like he did so much for so many people, but he really slacked on the business side. Like he never did for himself. And he never like, he never incorporated even. He was like operating no LLC, nothing, literally just operating, he operated on his
Oh,
own. And like it really took me a few years to realize that like a lot of my friends and other people that were in the legal field were levels ahead of him, and I had to really just understand. I had to go out on my own. So he and I clashed, and I just had to like take a shot and just say, "Fuck it." One of my boys let me come live, not live, come have a practice in their building. It was a jujitsu buddy of mine, and I just remember learning so much in like such a short period of time and realized that I was always going to them for questions as opposed to him. And like he mastered his smaller part of the legal world, but he was always very like he always cared about people. And for me, that's just something that I think ran in my family, like just having that human connection over everything. And I think so many situations in the legal field I've seen people just treat people poorly, or just try to flex their knowledge, or just be kind of rude to people just because they feel like because they're a lawyer they're ahead of somebody else. And that's not really a good way to operate, and I don't really move like that. And I think for me, whenever I have to put the lawyer hat on, it's like I try to keep
yeah.
it as I try to make it I try to force it to be very personable, even when these, especially if they're an asshole. If they're an asshole, I want to push it to be more personal anyway, because eventually you'll break them down. Because you can't put that, like, the fake shit doesn't last. You can't pretend to be like this stuck up asshole forever. And if you genuinely are that kind of person, then we'll clash anyway. But that's also the other reason as a lawyer, like you want to be right. You got to know what you're doing so that you're right, and then you don't have to deal with people who are kind of just people flex and try to act like, because like they'll just try to power play you, and maybe their client has more
Hmm.
money than yours, so they can spend more to try and like win. But if you're in the right, eventually if you can withstand the storm, you're good. And I think that piece of the legal field really always bothered me, is like it doesn't have to be a pain in the ass to deal with you. And sometimes I've actually
Yeah.
gotten a lot of help and made like a pretty insane network from being cool, even when I was on the other side of things. Like I've had people refer things to me, refer clients to me. I remember after Dylan Dennis fought Logan Paul, there was a lot of controversy because at the end of the fight, he tried to put like a jujitsu choke on him or something, and I had to do a hearing, and I went and did this. I did this hearing with a UK sanctioning body or something, and this was like Dylan decided not to show up at the last minute. I think he had like some medical situation go on, and I just had to jump in like on an hour's notice, thinking that like he was going to do this or he was going to get a different lawyer to do it, because I'm his agent at the time. I'm not like his lawyer like that, but I had to jump in. And I remember like these dudes, I had nothing to work with other than like memory of what happened at the event. And I made like a decent argument, and we were going back and forth. And at the time, like even in the final determining kind of documents, they said something about like how well I did. But then right after that, they were like, yeah, we're still gonna, slap him on the wrist or do whatever. It was more than a slap on the wrist, but he still got the negative, result. But at the end of it, one of the guys called me like a week later and was trying to like refer a couple clients to me on the in the fight world. And it was just interesting that like even when you are in a bad situation, just when people can sense your energy and understand that you're not like, an evil asshole, they want to try to help you.
No, absolutely. I mean, you've worked in a lot of different industries, where contracts can change, literally can change lives overnight. Have you ever sat across from someone and realized they were about to sign away more than they understood?
I mean, no, only because my job is to make sure they understand. And it's like when people bring
Yeah.
things to you, of course, like there's more often than not, people come to you in situations where they're ready to accept this, or you know what I'm saying? Like they're like, oh, I have this. I just want you to glance at it and make sure it's good. And then you realize when you look at it, like, do you understand that you're giving away X, Y, and Z? And I wouldn't really do that. Like I would hold back this, and that. And most of the time, people, the biggest thing that happens is deal fatigue, where people in long-term negotiations just are so beat up from the back and forth that they just want to get it over with. And it's like the longer
Yeah.
you can push that back and the more you can just stay in the pocket and kind of roll with the punches until the other side starts saying, fuck it, we just want to get this done, so we'll give them what they want. That's the person who usually wins. So it's really a war of attrition a lot of the times. But I think people underestimate and overestimate in different scenarios how much a lawyer can kind of do for them. Like there's a lot, there's leverage in all of these bargains, like somebody has more leverage than the others, like who needs who more. But in the best situations, you kind of have that equal leverage, and it's more about like educating clients on what it is they need and why, because sometimes they don't understand why. They can say, oh well, I don't care about this, and you're like, well, in my world now, I do a lot of digital media stuff, and we work with a lot of the top
Mhm.
YouTubers. We do all their contracts as well as athletes. And what I've seen is in a lot of these scenarios, people are willing to just take money and give away a lot of rights, but then you have to like break it down why that makes sense to them or why it doesn't. They don't, if you don't know that there's other revenue streams you can make off your IP or something like that, you'll say, oh, I'll do this sponsorship deal, but they own all the IP. Well, that's not a good thing, because if you own it, you can then license it other places. You don't have to have exclusive licenses with everybody, so that this way your one YouTube video can go 20 different places versus just living in one place and being limited to one audience. So there's a lot of things like that that come up over time that you have to kind of, just I think educating client as an athlete agent and as a lawyer for entertainers. I think those are two things that I want people to walk away from working with me like they know more about the game now than they did in the beginning. And listen, it's a double-edged sword though, because I've definitely had scenarios where you give somebody the whole game and you break it down to them, and then they think they can do it themselves, and then they screw it up the next time, and then they want to call you after the hammer is already dropped, and that's also an unfortunate situation. But that's a loyalty thing.
You're like, yeah, that's not working out. Is it very common, in the industry that you work in, for these companies to come in and want to take the IP rights of
Yeah, I
creators?
mean everybody does. That's 90% of the battle in the world of digital media is who owns the IP and what are the licenses you're giving to the other party to use it. So maybe you're only giving them a license during what some short, defined term, and then after that you're free to do what you want with it. And I mean, like, we represent top YouTubers. I mean, we have guys that have done like hosted Bulls games or done like ride-alongs with F1 teams and things like that. So I mean, when you're dealing with these big parties that have a lot of money, they're not always the most flexible, and it takes that relationship to make it flexible. It's not that you're just going to walk in and get what you want.
Mm.
It's that the better relationship you build with them, if you've done something smaller in the past, you kind of have to think of every relationship like a potential long-term play, because maybe they get you on this deal, but then the next one. And when I worked with primarily UFC fighters, that was a big thing in a lot of ways. Is like, they're notoriously difficult to deal with. And I had to spend years from being an intern there in 2013 to doing what I've been doing the last 10 years to build the kind of relationship
Yeah.
where I can push back when it's really warranted, and I'm not just, rolling over and excited to take whatever they give you. And that's the difference between a lot of good agents and bad agents in the fight world.
That is wild. So at certain times, a freaking company can come and contract you, to do UFC. What do you call it? UCG work or UG?
Well, it would be,
You know, I can't remember the acronym, but they'll contract you, right,
yeah,
to
yeah,
do like
UGC stuff
videos,
now.
posts,
Yeah.
or whatever for that. Yeah, there you go. So at that point, there's a possibility you can give up your IP rights just for that
Well,
content, right? Not for everything
yeah, but
else.
it's about how it's written. And this is what people don't understand, is that like these boilerplate contracts are always going to be very heavy leaning towards whoever gave it to you, right? Like it's going to be protective of them.
Mhm.
And most of the time they're not unreasonable if you're asking the right questions and you're pushing back on the right things. I mean, when you have the big creators, obviously they have a lot more leverage. But when we have some of the small ones, because we have leverage with the big ones, those same companies that we're dealing with will deal with us well, because they know that like we didn't gouge them on the bigger contract. Does that kind of make sense? So like this is my point of like
Yeah.
being able to create a good relationship and not rake them over the coals when you have all the leverage. They're generally more likely to give you a fair deal when you have a smaller client or something smaller going on. And I've had situations where like you're negotiating with the same people about three different things. Like they're pissed at one client that they have for something, and they're not pissed at my other client, but that bleeds over, and they're mad about how something else went. So they're holding it against another client of mine. And you have to realize that like, as a good lawyer, you have to be able to compartmentalize all these things. It's like, listen, you can yell at me about this client, but you're not going to yell at me about a different client who has nothing to do with that. But when you build the right relationship, I've had some very tense situations that like over time, it's just like the fight world is unique because people can talk all this shit and then they go fight. And then at the end of it, they're hugging because they just respect each other. And it's like, people don't understand.
Yeah.
And this goes back to kind of what we talked about the first time. some of the hardest things you have to do and the worst kind of situations you have to work through are what builds the trust in the future. It's like people look at it like every negative, like, man, this is breaking me right now, but they don't understand that if you can get through that, it will create a better relationship going forward if you handle it the right way. And that's kind of how those relationships get built, where you fought so many fires against the same people that when you come to them with something else later down the road, they respect you for how you dealt with a situation that nobody wanted to be in.
Yeah, no, that's craziness. I mean, you've experienced so much. Has there ever, or what's the emotional weight of being that person who has to tell your creators, your athletes or your talent, the truth or things that they might not want to hear? Or, like when they're entering in a contract and they want what they want, and you have to be like, you know what, you're not going to get what you want. You're going to have to compromise
Every
right
agent and
here.
every lawyer has done this before. Every one of us has had to be, I mean, I almost think it's the opposite of what people think. Like, I've seen critiques of certain clients I have. My favorite thing, or like my favorite is in like sarcasm. My favorite thing to see was people talking about like, oh, well, this person's advisors suck because they did this. And they're like, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Like they have no idea. Like, I've had people that are tied into a contract for 2 years, no matter what. And then they sign a deal for 3 years because, the people aren't going to move unless you sign a longer, they need something in the bargain, right? They're going to give you more money, but they need more
Yeah.
time. And I've had people criticize clients, like they couldn't understand why they would resign, but it's like they were already there for 2 years at a very low pay rate compared to what they deserve. So it's better to add the year and get 10 times the pay that they were getting. You know what I mean? These kind of situations occur, and people just don't understand all of the battles that are going on in the background of some of these deals. If you talk about entertainment, you talk about sports, like there's so many little things like that kind of color how you negotiate, and what the best case scenario is always different. Like I'll never forget being a criminal defense attorney coming straight out of law school, and like you think wins and losses are like guilty or not guilty, but wins and losses are like someone's going to go to prison or they can get probation. So it's like it's not even about whether they're guilty, it's about like
Yeah.
how can you humanize somebody so that they're not getting, everybody, whether they're an entertainer or even criminals, whoever they are, in my opinion, deserve to be looked at like humans, right? And I think
Yeah.
maybe it's because of the faith angle or other things, but it's like in my opinion, you have to go into everything trying to humanize who someone is. And I tell clients that like I can't represent you if I don't know you. This isn't like a just drop off some issue with me and go run away. It's like I have to get to know you so that I understand your energy. And then when I understand your energy, I can represent that energy to whoever we're negotiating with. Whereas if I'm just saying it because that's what I think on paper, it doesn't
Mhm.
carry the same weight as like, hey, this person believes this because of this, or you have to understand who this person is and why they think the way they think. And then you understand their argument better. And that's how you reframe things that start off as a no and turn into more of a conversation. My favorite thing, and I encourage everybody to do this in any business, ask questions. I've gotten more out of people by just asking questions and not even like pushing an argument, but just because if you ask them enough questions, they will lay out everything on the table that they think, everything that they want, everything that they believe, and then you have all the ammo you need to like change that worldview or change that view on whatever scenario you're dealing with.
Oh, I learned that too with, marketing and doing
For
partnerships, right?
sure.
And then it's like you're proposing a branding package. You wanna understand the client, you wanna understand what their needs to see what you're able to deliver to them, and that's one of the things that I learned early on is you allow them to talk, and you ask probing questions, and you let them and they're gonna tell you everything that they need, their obstacles, their weaknesses, their strengths, etc., and vice versa. And it's kind of stuck, and I tend to do it in with my normal friends. I don't know how to get out of asking questions because to me asking questions also leads into conversations and
But
communication.
that's the
But it's like
key.
trying to separate it.
You can't like it's almost a curse of like, again, if you're people focused and you're people oriented, getting to know people
Yeah.
and understand people is what like motivates you, and like it kind of like drives all of your relationships, whether it's business or whether it's personal. And you can't
Mhm.
be empathetic with somebody if you've never asked them how they feel. Or I ask people all the time. People always like, when I talk to people, I'll say like, are you good? Like, how are you? Like, you know what I mean? They're like genuinely asking, like, are you all right? Like, how are you? And people like get
Yeah.
thrown off because they're like, I mean, Nobody ever asked me like, am I okay? But I'm just asking just because like that shows that you care. And if you're whether it's in
Yeah.
business, people don't expect it in business, so when you do it, it's good. But yes, with friends sometimes you got to be a little shorter. But that's why they're your friends, because they know you deep enough that you don't have to like play the professional game all the time. But that willingness to like let somebody open up, it's why in depositions, the best lawyers, I always tell people, they get all hyped up to like go head to head with a lawyer in a deposition or in court, and I'm like, that's not actually going to be a problem. The best lawyers aren't going to be antagonistic. They're going to let you talk. They're going to ask questions and look very curious, so that when they talk you through everything, you're happy to keep telling them more and more and more than what, and then you didn't even answer their question. You just gave them more things to attack because you're so comfortable with how nice they are, you know?
Got it.
Yeah, it's a
Nice. That's, one of the things that I've been taught too is like to, at the beginning when you're meeting people, they're asking a lot of questions, a wise man once said nothing. So it's trying to find a balance, of both.
No, I mean, it's funny because I think what you said to me really stands out. It was marketing and sponsorships where I learned, because as an agent, I negotiated all of their player contracts. So, like, I negotiated their deal with whatever
Mhm.
team or league, but then I was also doing a lot of their marketing and sponsorships. And I remember like having
Yeah.
that epiphany of like, why would I go into a conversation telling you what I think you should pay? I may know, I need to know what I think the range is based on educated approach of doing the research. But with every brand I talk to, it's like I want to go in and ask them. I don't know what their budget is. I don't know if they're paying people in this similar kind of field already. I don't know. There's way more things you don't know than you do know. So that if you go in and allow them to just speak, they'll tell you the whole game plan. They'll tell you what their budget is. They'll tell you how much. Like they just lay it all out, and then based on that you realize, damn, I was
Yeah.
underselling or overselling this particular client, or maybe this just isn't even going to work because they're not in the realm of what we're trying to do. But better to ask those
Yeah.
questions than to assume.
Oh, yeah. I think, assumptions sometimes can be for assholes
Yeah, yeah,
because you make an assumption and it's like you can shoot yourself in your foot, when you make those
for sure.
assumptions. But in your opinion, why do so many talented people undervalue themselves, until after they've been exploited?
I think everybody has to learn hard lessons. I actually had a situation in the last 2 weeks with a client who's very successful. They're in their 20s, and is a very bad business situation. And like, had they done some diligence ahead of time, they probably would have recognized that early on, and they didn't. And I
Mhm.
told them, like, as bad as this feels, you can still go back to running your primary business and being successful and putting all that effort and energy into this. But now you've had the lesson that's going to stick of, hey, I can't just trust what someone says. I can't just trust who they are. I have to do my own research.
Mhm.
One of my mentors used to always say, trust but verify. He's like, you can trust people, but verify. You know what I mean? It's like, if you think,
Yeah,
I think so many people go into, I actually think it's interesting. The overvaluing themselves is something that I dealt with a lot. You didn't ask that. You asked undervalue. I think a lot of people overvalue themselves because they don't understand the competitive market, and you have to do the research to
yeah,
understand. And if you have good relationships, I used to be able to call other agents that are friends of mine and be like, these are competitors to me. And I'd be like, hey, what'd you guys get on that deal? And they'd tell me, and I knew that I could trust what they were saying or that I shouldn't trust what they say just based on who they are. And then I could
yeah.
go say, okay, well, I need to either put more on the table or take more off the table and explain to my client why. But it's a lot of people undervalue themselves because they don't take the time to really get to know whoever it is they're pitching themselves to. And if you don't know the market rates and the market value, and that's why people have agents, because as an agent, I had 20 UFC clients. So I'd know what people are making across the board. So then when somebody gives you an offer, I can give you a realistic expectation of what you should have. You're coming to me because I have that knowledge. And we would usually do like a big breakdown where I would give them like a packet every time we renegotiated that had like current rates, current deals, maybe the last 10 deals, not with names, but just with like figures of somebody who was ranked like this is paid this, someone who's ranked like that is paid in this range. And then you go into the other factors like social media following and just other kind of intangible assets that people have. So yeah, it's about educating yourself on both ends. And you can't even just trust your advisors. If you look at Mike Tyson or some of the people who kind of got raked over the coals during their competitive careers, you have to know the game and understand the markets to be able to like be educated enough to even accept a deal.
Yeah, and how do you advice, or what would you advise to athletes or people coming into this type of industry to protect themselves, to educate themselves, if there's also a trust issue of, that everybody is not for you and everybody's not looking out for your best interest, but they're looking out what they can make off of
The
you.
problem the problem that I found, and this is an honest take. This is 2026, where you have collective bargaining agreements for a lot of the pro sports. MMA did not have that, so UFC has no like union or anything like that. So you're kind of just at the will of whoever it is. But most there are agents that know what they're doing, there are agents that don't, and their clientele should usually tell you that. If you look at like what percentage of their clients are successful. There's a lot of people who have a ton of clients, but like maybe only out of 100 clients, they have like 5 big names versus having like 25 to maybe 50 clients and you have 20 big names or 10 big names. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
that should be a good gauge in the beginning. But the other piece of it is that like so many of these people have the problem isn't their advisor. Their advisors are telling them what they should do. The problem is they have other people in
Mhm.
their ear who aren't advisors who are it's like as an agent, I don't live with my clients. I'm in St. Louis. I'm not in a hotbed of anything really, but they have coaches, they have friends, they have people who are with them every day who are giving them the alternate view to what you're giving them. So the problems would always occur where they have somebody else who thinks they know more than you trying to explain to them what to do, and they take that advice and then they get burned and then they come back to you after they're no longer marketable. This has happened. It's like tale as old as time in the agent world.
It's just like getting advice from single people when you're married, right? Or vice versa. No,
Yeah, I
not
mean,
that.
it's
It's
like
like
you just
when
have
you're
to
married
understand
and
that
you're
they're
getting
not in the
advice from
position.
single people. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
But no, it's like I think you have that in a lot of industries where it's like, I outside of here, I worked in the real estate and I used to originate loans and I underwrote loans and stuff like that. And my clients were always like, well, my friend told me this because they bought a house, or my friend told me that. I'm like, well, go with your friend. Let them do the loan for you. Let them
Listen, I
originate
would
for you.
say that.
Let
I literally would say that. I literally said the same shit to people. I'd be like, well, then your friend should represent you because I don't have time to be battling you and your
and
friend
your
and your
friend,
dad. And you know what I
the
mean? Like,
experts.
because that's what happens.
Yep.
Not
It's
everyone is
freaking
worth your business.
annoying. But have you ever had to walk away from money, partnerships, or opportunities because it conflicted with your morals or values?
In a way, yes. In some like criminal defense, when I was doing that, absolutely. There's people I just wouldn't represent because of what they're charged with. I'm like, listen, I don't even whether you did it or didn't do it. I remember one time there was a period of time where I represented a few people in a category I didn't want to, but it was because I knew them. And this was like domestic violence type stuff. And all 5 of them got dismissed. So it's like I saw enough and I knew them well enough to be like, man, this doesn't add up. And I was able to kind of prove that. And they all got dismissed. But like I was very careful about who I represented in that pace. On the
Yeah.
agent side, I think it's more likely, and this is like a business tip for anybody. Like if you not everyone is worth your money. Not everyone is worth your time.
Mm,
Some clients, there are people I would meet with, and they're very successful people, and I would immediately recognize that they have certain character flaws. And I don't mean like they're like wild or whatever. I mean like they just they're gonna be so difficult, and their expectations don't match their reality. So you're gonna walk right into a situation where they expect the second they sign with you, money is gonna rain from the ceiling, and they're gonna be, and it's like
yeah.
I learned that the hard way from working with people that had like unrealistic expectations. You should believe in yourself. And as an agent and even as a lawyer, I have to believe in my clients, but it has to be like hedged in realism. And if there's no realism in their mind, you're going to walk into something that you may think is difficult and it's going to be 100 times more difficult. And then you're going to be stressed. And when you're stressed, you can't be your best, period. You can live in like there's good stress and bad stress.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece to me is I had a lot of problem child clients. I still do. And I think part of that though goes back to like faith and other things and like the idea that my job is also no matter what I'm doing for someone's business, my job is to like rub off on them in the right way. Like as an
Yeah.
agent, I was like the big brother to a lot of people. And I don't look at that and say like, oh, this person has problems, so I want to get away from them unless they aren't learning from those kind of problems. And there's people that I felt like and feel like that I can fix or I can help them see things differently and they will be a better person because I'm going to put time and effort into them rather than just like, you know what I mean? Rather than just saying, hey, this isn't easy. I'm going to abandon them like other people have in their lives. So it's really difficult sometimes because I take everything personally. I don't do anything like half-ass. I do everything like with an intention of getting to know someone well, getting to understand them. And then once you understand them, you can understand how they need to see something to understand it better and to like change and become better. So it's kind of like, what is that? I think there's a Bible quote where Jesus said, like, there someone was asking him why he was hanging out with the prostitutes and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, you don't send a doctor to someone who's healthy, you send them to the sick. And that's how I think about, like, sometimes God puts things in your path for you because he needs you to help somebody. You know what I mean? Not because it's going to work out and be completely successful, but that maybe it's on you to help be kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back in a good way and pushes them towards the light and not what they were doing before.
Oh, freaking absolutely. And I'm a big believer. It's like if whoever believes in the Bible and God, you already know that he didn't use perfect people, to get his
Exactly.
um
And none of us
voice
are
out
perfect.
there. And and I'm a big believer that church is like a hospital too. It's like where you go to heal, not to be judged. But that's a conversation
Listen,
maybe for
listen.
another day.
I mean, I don't know. I'm telling you, it's funny. I was watching. I reposted a reel the other day, and it was like an old white dude saying that he hadn't been to church in forever, but his black neighbors got him to go to their church, and he was like, man, he was like in tears. He was like, man, I don't know what they're selling, but I'm buying. And he was like, I'm gonna be back next week. But it's like that energy of like,
Mhm.
and I've felt it's. I'm a Christian, but I've also like I have
Yeah.
close friends who are Muslim. I have one of my biggest clients was Muslim, and he and I, when I was around him and his team, and they're praying and doing like praying 5 times a day, and they don't party and they don't drink, they don't do anything like that. There's a certain energy of like, holiness that I feel like you just have if you're locked in
Yeah.
on the spiritual level. And if you're not, that's where a lot of the chaos comes from. And it's like the people that are truly locked into the divine or the metaphysical, whatever you want to call it, you just move different, and life blesses you differently. And I just believe that.
There's a light, and I think that you're drawn to that type of people because I am also a Christian, and I do believe in the spiritual world and that connection, and I need it. And I feel like when I'm not connected spiritually, it's you don't function. And I think one of the things that you can learn from like different type of cultures, especially like the Muslims, they're very set on their prayer time, the dedication, the devotion that sometimes we don't have that type of structure, and there's things
It's
that we
easy
can
to get out of
learn.
it. It's easy to fall off the path. But I think that's part of life. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I mean when I say, like, some people I've represented, it's like everyone has to go through life and like go through the wilderness to find, what leads them to what's right and what leads them to you. You're kind of like a huge collaboration of L's, really. You know what I mean? And every loss is that lesson that puts you on the right path or back closer to the right path. And you're going to keep repeating those mistakes until you get on the right path. And I think everybody has to struggle with that in life. But I think for me, that's where with a lot of athletes, I really enjoyed the interpersonal part of it more than like everything can be business, but everything can also be personal. And if you can help people kind of take those lessons the right way and learn how to bounce back, that's where you get real success.
Oh yeah, exactly. But I mean, at the same token, doesn't that leave you exhausted at some points? And have you gotten to that point where it's like, you know what, maybe it's time I change my focus, my career, you know?
I
Um,
think the hardest thing with that is like having a family and all that kind of stuff is
yeah.
like there were periods we went through probably like 5 or 6 litigations over the course of 2 or 3 years where like our company spent a ton of money suing people, and it was just, you know what I mean? They were in the right, but it's like not even just suing people, but it's like who you hire, how expensive they are, how many hours they're putting in. Does something go to trial or does it settle? And having multiple times where it almost settles and doesn't, and then you end up in trial. And it's like that was a kind of a dark period there for a few years where like I really had to pull back at different points and be like, look, I'm happy, I'm healthy, my family's healthy. Why am I worrying about what's going on in business? There's always another job, there's always other business. But you have to protect yourself. And I had to learn that lesson because I was an athlete. I played D1 football and then went straight into training martial arts. And my dad was a martial arts teacher. So I've done martial arts since I was like 5 years old in one form or fashion. But getting into that place where you feel like, you know, you really have to say, like, what is important and what am I putting my effort into? I was a workaholic in a lot of ways. And now, even in the last year, I've had to really, and some of it has had to do with faith and other things where you have to step back and just say, hey, be grateful. Like, I'm just grateful for what I have and where I am. And whatever tomorrow holds, whether it's success, whether it's more lessons or whatever, that's cool. But like being appreciative of where you are, being present, because it's easy in business to always think about the next win or the next client or the next thing that's going to pop off and the next paycheck, right? But if you live like that, things fly by and you're not present. And I've been working on being more present in the day to day at home, just even just with myself of like, man, did I exercise today? Did I go outside and walk versus sitting on the phone or picking up that extra call that I can just do tomorrow? And finding that balance is, I think, the key to everything.
Yeah, I think that is something that we struggled a lot, especially in this space, in the crypto
For
space,
sure.
it can suck you in. And you started working in this space as well. You've been deeply involved in conversations around crypto, NFTs, creator rights, digital
Yeah.
ownership. Do you believe this technology is truly empowering all of us, or are we still repeating an old system under new branding?
I think the coolest thing about crypto. So we were going to launch an NFT project for one of our bigger clients at the time. I won't say their name, but
Can
it
I guess?
was one of those things
I'm
where, I
kidding,
mean,
I'm
yeah,
kidding, I
it's
won't.
pretty simple. Anyone who knows me probably knows who it is. But someone was explaining to me that to do all these contracts for these NFTs, you got to know what it's about. So
Yeah,
they encouraged me to go on OpenSea and buy an NFT, and they were kind of guiding me through, like, yeah, there's kind of communities involved. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what community can you be talking about? And like, I end up buying into, I think it was Mars Cat's Voyage was the first one that I ever bought. But then, like, yeah, I was on Discord and there's always people talking and you meet cool people. And this was right
yeah.
before Azuki came out. And Hape was, I don't know if you were around during this time, but Hape was like the biggest thing. It was like these 3D looking apes, and it was like gonna be the next thing. And there was like 500,000 people in a server or something crazy like that. It was some insane number. And I saw Azuki pop up, and I was like, I'm gonna take all the effort and energy out of doing this Hape thing and put it into Azuki. And I ended up getting like being one of the original like whitelist Azuki. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh my
it
god.
turned me into, I had bought another one called Apocalyptic Apes that ran, and I had just
I
had my
had one
second
of those
daughter.
too.
I just had my second daughter, and it was like I was on paternity leave, and of course I was not taking the full 6 weeks. I took like a week and a half. But I remember watching it run up to like an ETH one night from like 0.07 or something and being like, what is happening right now? And it was so crazy, and like the rush got me. So then I learned a lot about NFTs from just messing around. And then you realize that there's like ecosystems of cool people globally. And for me, the thing with crypto is that to be able to tie kind of a global communities together in a decentralized way is massive. And I think for me, being able to spend so much time traveling, I mean, I had fights. I've been to fighting events in London, Paris, Macau, Dubai, like I've been all over the world. Crypto has connected me to people all over the world, and I've been able, just through like NFT communities or other things, I've been able to like make cool connections and have people that can give you recommendations. And it's like just this world of decentralizing finance, and in a lot of ways I think is the future. We're going to be in a world where the internet and tech keeps improving, and we have a global community more so than your country of origin or whatever that may be. And that's what I believe in, and I think those kind of principles are why crypto makes sense to me.
Oh yeah, freaking abso-freaking-lutely. Now, when you were in this space, now that you're in this space, now that you understand, the ownership, IP, and all the craziness, have you ever had to represent anyone?
It's funny, in the crypto world, I've had a number of people reach out about potential issues that come up. And like usually it's small scale stuff that's not too heavy to even have to like sign them to an agreement. And I'm an idiot. So I'm usually just like, yeah, I'll help you. I'll just do it. What, I mean? If it's gonna take me like an hour, I'll help you.
Yeah.
But I think I have like, I've met a lot of cool people doing cool things. There's things like Final Bossu where they're creating their own anime, and it's a bunch of brothers who have a cool life story, and they're from the Netherlands, where I had one of my biggest clients. So like as all this thing panned out, I started talking to Kevin, who is the head of the project, and like knowing that they're going to be doing licensing on all their IPs, like that's what I do. I deal with intellectual property. So it's like there's things like that that inspire me to go deeper into certain crypto projects and to like reach out and offer my help. And I think more than anything, there's a lot of people in the crypto world that should be using lawyers more than they do. And I mean, the amount of people that have hit me up because somebody's launching a game and they're using my likeness, and what can I do about it? I mean, that's the hard part about decentralization. Is this is a global community, and laws are limited to where they take place for the most part, where any offenses take place. So it gets a little hard to, it's not even hard, it gets expensive to try and actually fight some of these things. But I've definitely dealt with my fair share of different IP questions in the world of crypto and NFTs.
For someone that doesn't have like the legal background, in your opinion, being in the space for a minute now, what is the biggest mistake creators make when it comes to protecting their IP, their intellectual property?
I mean, the biggest piece to all of this is like understanding the value of ownership. And that's where I think crypto and NFTs obviously, has done a lot around that. But it's like understanding that. Good example. I worked with Conor McGregor's team, his management team. His number one agent was my boss for many years. He'd hate that I said boss, but I worked with him, is what I'd say, for the last
Yeah.
10 years. And it's something where, a good example, Conor was taking videos of himself before he was ever famous. He's had videos. So he's done 2 Netflix movies that are all his footage. So he puts them together. He gets editors to like, clip it all together. But because he owns the IP, he can go sell that movie. It has no other rights in it. He doesn't have to use any UFC footage or anything like that. I mean, and if you get the licenses, if you do need it to finish telling the story about specific events. But like, because he owned that, he has a catalog that he could sell to anybody. So
Oh,
not
wow.
just what he put on the Netflix specials, he's got a catalog that he could sell to YouTube. He could, like, there's so many ways that you can market this same stuff. It doesn't even have to be exclusive. Some people will pay you just to have it on their platform. And that's the kind of thing that I think people don't understand about real IP ownership. Um, Understanding that all has value. And it's the same thing in the music industry.
Mhm.
If you've ever seen, all the different conversations, I know Drake just dropped 3 albums to get out of a contract that he had because he had 3 albums left. And now he may have his own, all that licensing stuff where people are, if the licensing bodies, either the record company or the UFC or whoever it is, owns the IP that you are using, or you're giving them ownership, now
Yeah.
they can go license this out, and you're getting a percent of something you should be getting 100% of, if that makes sense. So much of this is like understanding the value of ownership, and that you can license somebody to use something for a period of time, but that's not forever. So you can get paid on what you own without giving it all away. And certain people, maybe it's years, maybe it's months, maybe it's a post or two, but like, being able to truly conceptualize maintaining that ownership and being able to repurpose your own content for multiple needs because you have full ownership of it is so important.
Don't give up your IP rights. That's what I'm understanding. Like, even if these platforms come and try, look, there are a lot of companies out there, platforms where it's like, okay, sign on with us or sign on as a creator, and they want to take all your IP rights, even if you're creating
Most
content
of them,
not for them.
yeah. I mean,
And
most of these contracts are going to have some boilerplate language that they're usually willing to adjust. And it's one thing if it's like, I had a deal recently where somebody's getting paid just short of $500,000, and all they're doing is using, a specific brand in all of their streams, right? So everything they have from their phone to their computer is this particular brand. And in
yeah,
doing so, there was a lot of conversation about it because somebody was pushing back on it hard. And I remember telling them, like, how many other deals do they have? Well, they've gotten deals for like 10K here and 10K there. And I'm like, so are you willing to give up certain rights? This isn't about the IP. This is about, like, this particular one is about using other products. But like, the point I'm making is, you have to understand the use case for all of these things. Because I was explaining to them, no matter how many sponsorships you've ever gotten them, you could put them all together and they're still not as much as this one deal. So sorry if they can't use an Apple iPhone anymore. You know what I mean? But you're getting paid $500,000. You should probably take it. But then, like, so that balance of like leverage is really important. But yeah, it's about being smart and understanding that balance as you negotiate deals. Because if Target wants to own every post you do because you're doing UGC content, but they're paying you more than, if you're not making anything off of it, yeah, well, if they own each post you do, maybe that's worth it for you. It's about understanding, like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Is it just making the money? Because again, where else are you going to sell your target content anyway if it's not to target? Versus if you're a wider UGC person and you have 20 brands and now somebody wants you to be exclusive to them and they want to own the content, that's a different game. And you have to be able to, like, compartmentalize each of these things. And that's what lawyers can help you do, because some people are just thinking about it like a video is a video. They don't understand, well, a video can include numerous different things that could be tied to different categories. And because of that, you don't want this to be exclusive, because then, like, I'll use a wider world example outside of content. There were points in time where I know we did deals for Conor McGregor in the betting space where he had a South Asian betting company, a Russian betting company, a US betting company, but where you could only see the ads in those places. So in one category, by not signing some worldwide deal just because you made millions of dollars off a US betting company that only operates in the US, why would you give up territory rights outside the US? It doesn't make sense. So it's those kind of things people don't think about, because then we're able to have like 5 times that same deal because they're in other regions. So it's like regions. It's important in every contract to look at, like, the term, obviously. So how long can something be used? Ownership, who owns the content? What the territory is. Is it limited to an area or is it worldwide? Is it limited to a format? Is this only for Instagram, but you also have a successful TikTok and YouTube and other things? But, like, these are all different categories that you can carve out so that you're not giving away the whole bag unnecessarily just because you're being lazy.
Got it. Okay, that makes so much sense, when we first entered the space here a few years ago, one of the things that blockchain promised was a future where creators could truly own and monetize their work. Do you even think that we're close to that reality?
That's
Because right
such a
now,
hard one.
and you know why I'm asking this? Because when we first came into the space, it's like you came in Asuki time. That was years ago, where it was like, oh
2021.
my God, we're coming into the blockchain. It's truly decentralized. It's like the IP rights, and you own this, you own that, etc. And it's like you thought it was a free for all. You thought you were safe because we're in the blockchain. Now with regulation coming into the space, and people fighting for rights, people fighting for legality or all that stuff, it's like, this is where I'm getting at to, where are we with that as creators, and is this really truly going to impact us in the future?
I mean, that's a complex question because we're talking about multiple categories of things,
Yeah.
right? Like, on the creator side, it depends on the platform you use. Like, one of the things that I've found in having clients like Dylan Dennis, who has like 7 million or 7 million Instagram followers, you're in a position where all it takes is you getting suspended once, and you haven't done something to try and gather, whether it's getting emails through selling merch or something else. Like, and also, I didn't realize that's super frowned upon in Europe. In Europe, we were trying to give away tickets to an event, and I was like, well, why don't you just do like a landing page where anybody can put in their emails and we'll email them the ticket? And they're like, oh, giving out your emails is such a privacy violation in Europe. Like, they don't play about that at all. Whereas I was like, in the US, like, we all throw them away. Like, I have a whole email that I use for like bullshit, where, like, if I'm ordering clothes or something and I don't want all those popping up on my main inbox. So it's unique because I think in the world of Web3, we know how many people have had like offenses, right? Everyone has gotten money stolen or lost or done something. And that's
Yeah.
the whole point of centralization, is to try and protect people. Now, does it always work? We know it doesn't always work perfectly. Nothing is perfect, but it's either going to be a free for all where people are getting scammed and you just have to learn the hard way like we did,
Yeah.
or there's going to be some level of centralization involved in order to try and stop bad actors from taking advantage of people. And when you talk about like older people who are getting put onto crypto by their kids who know a lot about it and they don't know what they're doing, my parents live a mile from me, and I tell you, there is not a week that goes by where they don't come asking me about some email or text message that's a scam. And I'm like, listen, I promise you this is a scam. Nobody is calling you about this, or your old account from 20 years ago is not, you don't owe them $1,000 or whatever it may be. And it's a balance. Everything is about the balance of how do you protect people without overprotecting people or overdoing it. And crypto and NFTs and this world that we love of blockchain is going to have to make a decision eventually on whether we're just okay with the scammers doing what they do and everyone learning hard lessons, or whether there's some way to kind of try and stop that through some form of centralization.
I mean, it's just getting worse and worse by the minute, in my opinion.
But I mean, when
And
it got to meme coins and the president's launching one and wrecking people and, all the different things that happen, it's like that's the stuff where, you
do you
know,
think that's kind of what set the opening of the door to us becoming a little bit more regulated? Because now you have, like the future president of the United States, now you have politicians, worldwide politicians, you know, creating tokens and rugging the shit out of us in 4K. And
I mean, but it's like if you're in that meme coin world, you understand that that's part of the game.
yeah,
Every time you buy a token, you're taking a risk.
yep.
Period. And
Mhm.
I think maybe there needs to be like bigger disclaimers on everything of like, so the lay person doesn't think they're just going to buy this and it's just going to go straight to the moon or whatever. But that's why there's regulations about all those kind of things, because realistically, I mean, it's a hard battle. It's a hard battle because once you have politicians that are doing the same thing, it's like, how do you stop it? These are the people that are supposed to be trying to protect people from different things that are problematic to society, not
Okay,
engaging in it themselves.
so let me ask you a question.
Yeah, for sure.
When the Trump coin, can we talk about it just for one quick second and then I'll move
Sure.
past it? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, when that one was launched, one of the things that I started saying, I sometimes like to talk out my ass or, whatever, but he's going to run whatever and maybe promising other world politicians certain things. What best way to get money from other countries than creating a coin, right? Because there's a lot of guidelines and regulations. If politicians or these presidents or whatever kings, queens from other countries are going to donate, you have to go through a lot of processes and procedures. There's a lot of guidelines, regulations. If you're going to go the legal way, what best way to get money from them and make promises than creating a freaking token?
I mean, I think you're right. I try to stay out of politics because it's just never a good thing. There's nothing good that's going to happen from arguing about political decisions.
No, but and then it's like wifey decides to do one thereafter, and I'm like, okay. And then you have another, what president was the other one that rug from Argentina or something,
Yeah, it was South America somewhere.
I mean, it was like the wild, wild west during that time. And I'm like, it's like, does it continue too because we endorse it as human beings and we're like, oh my God, we cry wolf. We're like, we want
Well,
politicians.
the problem is that I hated the whole meme coin cycle or whatever because in reality, that's all it is people just trying to make money. I think there was in the peak of like NFT times, what was cool about all of it was that while there were rugs and all those other things too, there was a lot of people coming together doing cool shit. Like I went to NFT
Yeah.
NYC when D Gods were going crazy and went to that party
Yes.
and met a bunch of friends. And it was like, that was such a dope experience that I really felt like that was peak NFT. Like it's the bringing together of people all under one community, doing things in real life and hanging out. And like that felt like, hey, this could be something dope. But then once the meme coins went crazy, it's literally just on its face. People want to make money. So they will scam you. They'll do whatever. They'll get in and get out and convince you to buy it and pump and dump on you. It's like there's so many of those things that I just felt like that culture, you have to know you're going to lose everything. You have to, unless you have insider information, which so many people did. And that's why they came up. And it's like that world. Yeah, like you can't I can't look at that like anything other than it was the Wild West. And so many people suffered from L's during that time, but you got to learn your lessons.
And there was insider, and then there was insiders, because you thought that you were an insider. You thought that you were getting an early CA. And by the time you knew it, you were part of that exit liquidity for some of them.
Listen, I won't mention what coin it was, but it was one of the biggest. And I know somebody who got a text and sent it out about the coin before it launched, like days before it launched. And it launched, and I still was like, I'm not fucking with this. I'm just not. You know what I mean? I'm not playing with it. And then like a day later, I did. And I mean, I came up a little bit, but it was just like, that's what the game is. And it's like, if you're not in that first ring of buyers, you're just gonna take L's, and
See,
that's why I
and
stayed
that's
away
what
from it,
this
and that's
space
what killed
does to
crypto.
you. Yes, and then the space, it's the FOMO, like you sometimes you do, because I've gotten CAs, I am not going to lie, 10K, 15K, and then I'm like, nope, not going in it. I'm extra liquidity. And then that sucker goes to freaking a million, then 5 million, then 20. And I'm like, still not FOMOing in. And then you FOMO in. And I'm like, what the fudge? It's
It's like
like,
you just look at it like, well, if everyone's still winning and I'm still sitting on the sideline, let me go get in the game. And then yeah, that's when this it's but I've learned that lesson, and that's why I just
yeah,
didn't play that game. And I think there are a lot of people who didn't. There's a lot of people who realize that like, hey, I'm tired of getting dumped on, so fuck crypto, I'm out. And that's where we lost so many people because we're trying to rebound now from the period of time where everybody got wrecked. And it's like it's those kind of movements that really make crypto kind of such a volatile place, and make when it starts kind of gaining traction for the right things and serious people start focusing, and the VCs come in and all that, and then a couple bad acts come, whether it's FTX or any of the other things that kind of crash the entire market, and then everyone's like, see, we told you so. And you just got to learn to ride
hey,
the
let me tell
waves.
you, I got so freaking wrecked so many times. And then sometimes when I would FOMO in, it's like all of a sudden that shit goes down. And I was like, what just happened?
There was some app
Um,
someone sent me where you could like track everyone's wallet, and like for a week, I was putting minimal money in there. Like I'm talking like maybe I put 100K in, and I might have got into 20 different tokens that week, just to say like whatever. I'm just gonna copy trade some people that I know do really well, and I got wrecked on all of them. And that's where I was just like, listen, I'm not built to sit in front of a chart all day to know exactly when to get in and exactly when to get out. So I'm just gonna leave it alone. And that's what people
I mean,
did, and that's why the markets crashed, because so many people aren't participating anymore.
do you think that that was a reality too? And the reason that I say that is because you do see some of these KOLs, right? And they do live streams, they post out there and, they're copy trading some of these wallets. There's a lot of websites now where you can go and look at some of these wallets, what they're in, they're out. But I sometimes think, by the time that you are getting that information is delayed and you end up getting wrecked. Do you think that some of these KOLs maybe that are showing so that they're doing some of those things and making profits maybe have some type of insider info and
A
that's why they're
hundred
live
percent.
streaming
Those
and
are the
showing
people
it?
who get the insider information. They it's the having a big following. It's the same way having a big following on IG means that somebody will pay you something to post at some point. If you're a KOL in the crypto world, somebody's going to give you insider information because you have a big community that'll follow what you do. It'll look good in the beginning, and then they all know to get out. And I think
Yeah,
that's the hardest part with all of it, is that like I love the crypto world because when I was traveling around the world going to events on a regular basis in the fight world, I had people are always up. There's always someone who's in other continents, and like I could sit on spaces while I'm at the airports and doing all these different things, and it was like a fun getaway when you're stuck with technology, especially during the pandemic and the tail end of the pandemic there. But at the end of the day, I just realized like my dubs are going to come from real business in the real world in real life, and that doesn't mean it won't be tied to crypto in some way, shape, or form. But like
yeah.
me sitting here, I'm not going to make my millions off of gambling on meme coins. I know that for certain. So let me go focus on bigger business and bigger initiatives within the world of crypto, like the IP stuff and all these other things. And let me let the gamblers keep gambling.
That's one of the hard lessons that I learned. And this space will suck you in. And it's that chase, right? The chase that we all get. And you're seeing certain people making wins, profits, and then until you realize, okay, is that altered? Is that the reality?
And
Because
people are
when
posting fake profit and loss sheets and all these kind of things. I mean, everything, the economy of crypto is on Twitter for the most part, and it's attention. And that attention determines who gets wins and who doesn't. It's who gets the white list, it's who gets all these different things. And ultimately, that's the limiting factor for crypto right now, because the average person can't just jump in. The average person can't even buy something on a wallet without fucking it up at some point, and so to learn, you have to come deal with all these people that are already kind of ingrained in the pump and dump kind of technology, not technology, the pump and dump kind of culture. And
Yep.
that's what happens. So it's like you're either willing to take those L's to learn the lessons to get good at it. And I think that's the key to business generally, and why I like crypto. most people involved in crypto are at least growth minded enough to pick up these things on the fly and learn new things, whether it's ordinals, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's, Ethereum, Solana. Like, we've jumped through chains, we've learned so many different things because you want to be up to speed with the future. And that has now tilted towards like AI and all the other things that are coming along with that. So at the end of the day, I think the good thing about the world of crypto is that you have people that are realizing that if you can build, especially devs and people like that, if you can build cool shit, you can make millions of dollars. And you don't have to be a Harvard graduate who's done 50 years of business to understand it. You can do it on the fly for the good and the bad. And if you're willing to play in the Wild West, you can win the casino and you can lose too, you know?
You know what? One of the things that I recently understood lately that, like you said, you don't have to be a graduate, you don't have to know X, Y, and Z. But if you're able to understand a system and how it works, you're able to get creative because now there are a lot of tools that we have at our hands that are disposable in order for us to
For sure.
create. Like, for example, trading, it's a lot of us are in trading now. And there's a couple of guys that have created tools that we're able to utilize. One of them is now on the App Store and things like that in order for us to utilize. And there's no degree there in that, in coding and putting apps together, but it works. And that is the thing that people don't understand. Like, hey, if you can think outside the box and you understand something that you're doing and there is a need for it and we don't have that tool or whatnot, there's a lot of apps that can help you create that need.
And if
And
you're not one of those people, you have to become cool with those people. The same way, yeah. I don't know. I don't want to say this. I don't know if I want to say this or not. Let me think about how I'm going to pose this. It's kind of like, okay, I'll tone it down a little bit. Like, it's kind of
say
like how
it like
people used to
it is.
joke about, some people used to joke about like the athlete hanging out with the smart kid or being cool with the being cool, or like we used to joke about like black dudes being cool. We always be cool with the weird kid, so if he comes and, does something to the school, everybody, he's cool with you. At least you were nice to him. But I'm using this example of like,
But
if you're
that's
not
so
a dev type,
true.
if you're not one of those people, I've learned in business, if I find people that are smarter than me at some
Mhm.
area that I think is important, I'm going to lean in with them and I want them to explain it to me. And if you have that growth mindset I keep talking about, the more that you allow people to be smarter than you, and instead of trying to challenge them for your own ego, you decide, hey, I want to learn from that dude. That is where I've gotten 90% of the wins in my life, was from saying, hey, somebody knows more than me. Let me humble myself and go sit down and let them break it down for me. And let me
Yeah.
see how they do something. And then you trigger ways to make it your own or to like improve on it. And now you're helping them too. And now you're both doing better. So it's like, what I love about crypto is it's so many people that are built like that, where they want to learn
Mhm.
different things. They want to explain different things. They try stuff. I have a whole separate laptop over here running the Hermes agent and doing outreach for sponsors and stuff, just because I was like, let me try it. I don't
Yeah.
know anything about coding, but I can go on any AI platform, type in, here's what I'm trying to do. And it guided me through the whole process. Now I have an agent running 24/7 doing sponsorship outreach. That's the next level of all
I
of
think
this,
I need to talk to you about that stuff offline because
It's
it's like, okay,
proprietary.
you understanding this stuff. I'm like, okay, wait, I have difficulty.
But I don't have to understand it. This is the key. I don't understand any of it. All I understand is people have agents. How do I get an agent? Here's what I need done. Can agents do that? And putting it together. But like, and I say that not to discourage you by any means,
Yeah.
but to say that like my level of understanding is zero. But what I can do is read and follow directions. So I can use AI to direct me step by step on how to set something up and then fuck with it till it works. And now you're like, oh, okay. But you see what I mean? Like, we're at a
Yep.
level of, I remember my brother, who's an attorney who does really well for himself, was like talking shit about AI a year ago. He was like, man, I'm never using any of that stuff, man. Fuck that. I don't want to hear AI anything. And now he's like, oh man, our firm just started using Copilot. This is pretty cool. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
your levels behind the game, because now you're talking about just getting on Copilot and I have a whole agent running like a division of something that I do for clients like on its own. So I just got to take the calls, but this thing will set the meetings. It'll do whatever I need it to do. And it's that level of understanding new technology and being willing to say, I don't know, but let me find someone who knows and get it done.
Okay. So you have this set up on a totally complete separate laptop, right?
Mhm.
Did you
and I
have to?
talk to it on Telegram. So it's like a person on Telegram. I named it something. It's a bot. And as long as I keep this computer plugged in and up and running, it can access. Now, I don't want to say anything. I don't know what it can and can't access, but let me tell you the kind of mistakes it makes. I've tried to be like, hey, send me something with all the brands I should reach out to for this particular client. Who's spending money in the market in this kind of creator, whatever. It sends it to me, but then it actually created its own website for that person. And I clicked the link and it had like the whole person's like all their information. It was accurate. It had a contact form, and all I really
What
have to do is go like put it on a server and I think it'll work. Now, I'm not a tech guy, so I could be wrong about that, but I could click it from my phone and see it pop up on my laptop that it actually built out a website. So it's like that level is what's here already. So the people who figuring this out 5 years from now,
is
people are going to have a whole like
crazy.
operating team, and that I'm sure people do already, but
Like
again,
my
it's like how are you taking what we're learning from this world of crypto and putting it into your real world? And that's what I
okay.
want to be on the front end of.
So going back to
Sorry, I
your
know I'm
laptop.
all over the place.
I know we're all over the place because like AI and technology, it does
Welcome to my
fascinate
life.
me too. Like it's
I
just
went to
like
high school with Sam Altman. Like, so the dude who created ChatGPT was 2 years above me at my high school in St. Louis, Missouri. That's crazy, huh?
that is crazy. So did you buy like another little computer processing system, or is this just like
That's
an
what
app
most people
that you
do.
or you're just
No, I
like an
mean,
app that you downloaded or Telegram? Like
it's
how
an
are you getting the
open
AI?
source app.
Oh, open source. Okay, okay,
It's
got
an
it.
open source app that you run it in terminal on I run it in terminal on my MacBook. So I bought a new laptop. I just needed to anyway. So I just, instead of trading in my old one for like $300, I was like, whatever, I'm going to keep it. And I've seen some people post, I'll send it to you, about how to set this up, and it's open source and it runs on its own. Now, obviously you got to worry about security and other things, but I wiped the computer and then I just put just that on the
'Cause
computer.
I
So
actually
my
have a
terminal is
laptop.
up.
As I do have a second laptop that I don't use, and I just pulled
See?
it
So
out of
look,
storage, and I'm gonna wipe it, clean, whatever, and then try it out on that laptop.
people can, I mean, there's capabilities out there now where you can give it its own email address, and as long as the tab is up, it can send emails on its own and do these things on its own like a living, breathing person. So I'll send you the people you need to follow who do this, who I looked at, and then I took their videos, and I of course didn't watch the whole thing, but I like watched enough to know that I can just go to Grok or whatever and let it show me step by step how to build it out. And I messed with it for like 40 minutes, and then I had an agent doing cool shit.
How long have you been doing this or using it for?
A week.
And do you feel like it's free time? Like, walk me through that experience.
It's not. My problem is, as you can't tell from, if you can't tell from this conversation, I am all over the place. So like 1 second I'm an agent, 1 second I'm on a phone call, then I'm a dad, and then I'm jumping in
Yes.
here. And at night
So
when everybody goes to bed,
you're like an
or me and my
octopus.
wife are sitting watching TV, I will pull out my laptop, and she actually does a lot of UGC stuff with Target, funny enough. But I decided that I'm going to go here and I'm going to figure this out. And I just messed with it. So then at night, but now that once I got the whole thing set up, I can just sit on my Telegram and say, hey, I need to do this. And it'll ask you, okay, do you want me to send this into your notes on your iPhone, or do you want to send this in here? Do you want to save it there? Here's the link. It's on your computer. Do you want me to open it? It'll ask, like, do you want me to open the website on your computer? And if my computer is just sitting over here, it'll just pop up on the screen, and then I can see what it's doing and what it's talking about. But I'm literally like texting on Telegram to an AI bot that's running my computer, and that has like, I don't want to say full capabilities, but has like a lot of capabilities on my computer. And I asked it, here's the business that I run. What can you help me with this, and that? And it was like, I can create my own CRM system. I can do whatever. What I've asked it to do is like brand searching. So like, here's the type of creator I have. What brands do you see that are spending money in? And you choose. So like when you set it up though, you have to choose your subscription. So you're paying for tokens on whether it's AI, or whether it's Claude, whether it's Chat GPT, whether it's Grok. And I use Grok, and I use 3 different ones at once just to like ask them which one is the best one to use for this kind of thing. That's the cheapest. So I loaded like $20 in it, and I haven't ran out yet. So I'm not using it all day, every day, but like every evening I'll sit down with it and like ask it things. And it was funny because I had it like, I think you can go through Discord, and I run a lot of business through Discord, where like I can send to one of our like project managers. I could just have it directly message them what I needed to do or what the results were to something, and they can go take it and run with it. So this is the world we're living in now.
That's Well, it's not wild because I've seen some of the stuff that I can do, but I haven't like really talked to anybody that's actually, trying it out and doing it because I've been wanting to, but I am a big skeptic too. I do play around in Claude and,
Yeah.
other AIs trying to create and build a little bit of bots, which are still under construction, because every day I'm all over the place too. Like, okay, nah, today
Yeah.
I feel like doing this, so now I'm gonna put this, and then it changes the whole trajectory of that AI bot.
But it's like if you put in a little bit of time here and there, you can do some cool shit. But it's like again, knowing who like the most successful people that I know, it's about filtering out noise. I can tell
Mhm.
who's a bullshitter from day one. I can understand who doesn't know. And like some there's when you asked about like other people you turn down, the people I turn down the most that I'm like the saddest about are people that I really like, but I understand that they don't have the knowledge that it takes to do what they're trying to do. So like they'll be like, "Hey, I'm just doing this company or I'm starting this." And I can tell that they don't really know how to do their DD on the people they're working with. So it's like, oh, one of your boys, some guy brought you this opportunity and you think this is gold, but it's only gold if that dude isn't full of shit. And like I meet that dude and then you're like, nah, bro. And then like 6 months later, they hit you back talking about how they got screwed out of money and they put in their whole life savings into something. And it's like those kind of things. So on the flip side of that, in this world of like I had so many followers that from like back in the NFT days where if you're follow after follow, if we're all in the same project, and it's like you got to wipe that. You got to like block that out and cut back so that you're following people and you're at least like getting notifications for people that are doing real shit. Because then that's when I saw this one and I jumped on it because I missed the last train of like AI agents and was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is something I think I can do. I set it up within like a 40-minute period and then it's been running ever since.
Okay, definitely going to try that out and then, take you up on sending me that information for the stuff that you read, and I'm gonna take a
For
look at
sure.
it. Now
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you as always.
oh my goodness gracious. I can't believe like you have AI agents now. I'm running behind on that stuff. But I wanted to shift a little bit um to, we talked about so much, but you occasionally share faith-based reflections online. How has faith shaped the way that you move through pressure, success, uncertainty, and even this space?
I think it's always a hard balance because like, the things of this world are not the things of that world. You know what I mean? And I think you have to learn faith is such an important piece. I don't understand how people don't move in faith, right? Like I was raised by like my dad's Irish, so I grew up Catholic. My mom converted to become Catholic, and but I grew up going to Baptist churches with my mom's family in Mississippi and other places like all around. But so I don't really care about denomination so much. But for me, so much of this has been when you play football and the fight world and all the things I've done, you have to pretty much be close to God. My dad was kind of a hippie, so he's very much a Mufasa kind of character of like, you don't need a church, you don't need this, like, but have a relationship with God on your own. So for me, so much of what I've always kind of done is had that personal relationship. But I don't understand how you can go through life, especially with like physical danger situations like I did,
Mhm.
without having some like deeply rooted faith. Because I
Yeah.
think when you look at, I mean, I can tell you some crazy stories actually. I mean, you know what? I'll get into that. So, like, life is what gives you that, right? Like, you have to have it instilled, like the
Mhm.
foundation of faith, but then life and its challenges will hit you in ways that, really affect that. And I think for me, the biggest piece faith wise for me was like my wife and I went through like infertility for a number of years. And we were in a position where we had tried for 3 or 4 years. Nobody could tell us what was wrong. We did IVF. Out of all the IVF, there was like one egg or whatever, like one
Yeah.
fertilized embryo at the time. And I remember her being devastated about it and me trying to like hype up the team. You know what I mean? Like I'm bringing the
Yeah.
energy like, yo, all we asked for was a one and that's what we got. We got one. You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, there's a 10% chance it'll work. So they're already planning the next one. And that one worked. And that was my oldest daughter. So it's like, you don't go through something like that without really having like the heaviest belief in faith, and like that things happen for a reason, and understanding that your L's are temporary, and that the things that you do well, like I think from a spiritual perspective, how that having that view and that lens to look at every bad
Mhm.
thing or every good thing and being grateful even during the bad times is what really sets things apart. So then we did IVF for a number of years after that. Nothing, 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 like 3 or 4. And that's all self-paid. Like we don't have insurance for any of that shit. So that was this is like while I'm starting the agent stuff. And this is while like I was as an agent, as an NFL agent in the beginning, you had to pay out of pocket for guys to go live somewhere, train with a pro trainer, and then hopefully get a combine invite and go to the NFL combine. So I was spending like 10K a pop on every client I had for a number of years. And I remember there was times where I couldn't pay my bills, but I'm like paying for some kid to live in Miami and rent a car and like whatever. It was stupid. It was so crazy. And that's
Amazing.
while this is going on. And then I'm paying for the IVF. And then I was like, I had to shut it down because financially I was like, look, I can't spend 20K a pop for another however many times. And then we naturally had my second, like out of the blue, wasn't expecting it. And you don't go through stuff like that. And there's even a deeper story in that where like there's a story of a miscarriage that happened at one point, and my wife saw a picture of it was a panda. We used to call it, we were like, my first kid, I called Nemo because like it's not our actual name, but I joked about it because we had one egg, so I was like Nemo. And I was
Yeah.
like, it's just like Finding Nemo. And then when she came out, that's what we said. But then I used to call the other one a panda, you know what I mean? Or like, because I was like the pandemic. So we did IVF and we thought we were pregnant and we weren't. But she found a panda sticker. Swear to God, she got on a plane after having a miscarriage and saw a panda sticker sitting in her chair. Like it was just on the handrest. And then like 6 months later, we found out we were pregnant with our second daughter. So
Oh,
even
wow.
in their room today, we have the picture of the embryo and we have the little panda sticker on a piece of paper framed in there. So it's like, how do you not believe in God when things like that happen in like the darkest times of your life? And I think for me as a competitor, I played 15 years of football, never missed a game, never got hurt once. I'm not saying that has to do with like, just because I prayed I wasn't injured and other people must not, but like, I just think that you have to live the life experience to like really frame how you look at like religion, and spirituality has to frame how you look at life. Otherwise, it's kind of sad. And otherwise, I think the dark moments would be too dark for people. And once you kind of understand that and you feel it in your spirit, that's a different game. And now you're just moving on a different level where like you're not as affected by the ups and the downs of life because you just feel like you're living your purpose. And that's the balance that I think we're all trying to find is like living your purpose in the long form.
Oh my gosh, that
Sorry,
is
that was
so
a lot.
freaking no, that is so real, and that really hit through to the core because we never know what people are going through, mentally, emotionally. We never understand the storms that they're going through. And if you do not hang and that's what's gotten me through a lot, faith and God. And if I do not hold on so strong to my faith and God, I
Have
think
to.
mentally, emotionally, I probably would be laying in a bed depressed, crying, and
And I
going
can
through.
understand why people are, when you meet people who really don't have that connection. And it's like, Conor McGregor went recently and did like an ayahuasca trip. Basically, it was called Ibogaine and something different, and like felt
Mhm.
like he saw God and found God in that moment, and like been on an upward trajectory for a comeback and all that. But it's like you can't. I think for me as a parent, I want my kids to have that foundation. And it's actually
Yep.
funny because my oldest daughter is the most super spiritual. She like drew the 10 commandments on her wall. And like,
Aw.
so we're swapping schools and it's a long story, but she's ending up in Catholic school. And we were just like, for all the prayers that I put up to get her here, for her to go that path where she listens to the Bible all the time. She has this action Bible she listens to. But it's like, I think all in all, what I'm trying to say is the way life shapes out, if you have that foundation of faith, you still have to go into it's like you can practice forever as an athlete, but you still got to go in the arena. And the arena is where
Mhm.
you learn. And like you have to go into the wilderness of life and suffer a little bit and understand. And I think it brings you back at the right time when you've learned your lessons and when you're called to do so. But without that operating lens, life is hard. And I can understand why people suffer from a lot of, negative things, whether it's depression or suicidal thoughts and all these things, because you don't have hope. And having hope, I think all different religions put that in different contexts, but understanding that things are bigger than you kind of shifts that perception sometimes.
No,
Sorry, I'm giving
absolutely.
you so many rants tonight. I apologize.
Oh my, no, do not. This is what Unscripted is. This is the type of conversations that I love, that the audience loves. It's like the human behind the PFP and what they're building and what you're doing in the space. Now, I want to ask
Yeah,
you
my
one
PFP
question
has
before
hair. Mine is way off.
the Asuki, but I want to ask you one more question. And then before I ask you about other stuff that you're building, but do you think that peace and ambition can coexist?
I think everyone has to find out what brings them peace. Peace does not exist outside of yourself. Yourself, like you're, and this is so my dad, like I said, he's Catholic, right? But
Yeah.
he's also a martial artist. So like Buddhism and all that stuff is very heavy in my I have a samurai helmet over there and a Buddha statue or whatever. But it's like understanding that suffering is a part of life and all of that is important. But
Hmm.
I think having to like level with the fact that peace is what brings you happiness, whatever that is, where you can have a still moment. And for me, sometimes peace is, hey, I'm not doing something fulfilling with business and with, if I spend 8 hours a day plus working, how do I make sure that that's fulfilling my internal purpose? Because then when things are stressful, I'm excited to win, I'm excited to solve the puzzle, not like, fuck man, I gotta do this again. Because like the difference in work between doing something you love and you're passionate about versus doing something that is tedious, that's what takes from your peace. When we were going through all that litigation, it took from my peace because I didn't think we should. I think you take whatever the best settlement you can get and you walk away, and now you're not spending tons of money and you get it done with, right? But like the energy it takes to keep fighting those fights a day in and day out for years, that breaks people, and I had to realize that that's really what was taking my peace from me. And I shifted from like the being the general counsel to like running our athletes division, so
Yeah.
it's, I think everyone on earth has to balance what peace is for them, but it's not that there's not labor in peace, but
Yeah.
peace is being balanced through the labor in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So, you're not just an attorney, you're also a creator, commentator, and host. What inspired you to start creating content instead of just staying strictly behind the scenes?
I'm laughing right now because I know my partner in the show has criticized me because we haven't done it in a while, but we were talking about bringing it back. But I
Yeah.
think for me, this part of my problem in life is that I've always wanted to be in the background. And I think there were opportunities outside of being an athlete myself. There were opportunities where I could have probably stepped up and done more and put myself in the limelight a little more than I ever did. And that's a conscious decision that I made. But I now understand that like, at the end of the day, for me to do what I do, I have to depend on signing the right clients, right? I have to bring in the right clients, and now I have the ability to help them level up and sell their content somewhere for good money, or to do, I mean, what I'm doing right now is we're forming a secondary entity. So even separate from what I've done as at the law firm that I'm at, we're going to do more like advisory consulting work where we take creators and help them really generate business. And whether that's owning their IP, selling their content libraries, all those kind of things, bringing athletes in, we will represent some people as talent, but allowing us to be more versatile and just plug holes where if we have the right client, we can solve your problem rather than thinking that we're just an agency or just advisors or just one thing or another.
Hmm.
That's kind of where I'm at as of right now. Um, but I think I've also realized that why there's no need for me to be in the background. I can still give some of myself in content and talking about things I'm passionate about and engaging in these kinds of discussions. And then I don't have to try to like be in the background forever, because there's nothing better than you being able to like be the one, right? Like if something popped off for me and went really well, I'd love doing that, because at the end of the day, then I don't have to depend on someone else. I know that I'm in control of my own destiny. And that's been the hardest part in transitioning to business as an athlete, because in my mind, I'm still an athlete, in your
Yeah.
mind, I'm still who I was when I was playing sports and all that, but I'm living through other people. Whereas I'm like, hey, why don't I take my own kind of future in my own hands by doing more and just engaging in things that give me passion?
Oh, yeah. So, was that the vision behind you creating abstract and unfiltered?
That was
Or what
really
was
because
the
I was in
vision?
a yeah, I was in a group of a lot of cool people called the Daily Alpha, and it was a show that ran for a really long time. and one of the creators was based here. So I ended up knowing, we had mutual friends and we became boys, and I was just always active in that community. And when
Mm.
the abstract streaming came out, some people wanted to do it and didn't have a partner, and that's when I decided to jump in. So that's when we started doing the show, and we had a lot of fun with it. And it's like, I got some white lists from doing it. You know what I mean? It was like, it was the
Yeah.
plug to getting a lot of things and just being able to talk about things that I'm interested in rather than always consuming something, like give rather than consume, even on the content side. And I think we're going to bring it back here eventually. My problem is time commitments, as you know. I was like, I am the worst about, like, part of my peace and my balance is not having too much on my plate
Yeah.
on a personal level. So being consistent with some things is a problem for me, because if my energy is just not right one day, I'll be like, no, I'm not doing this today. We'll just have to figure it out. Now I have to be cognizant of other people and their time, but that's the holdup right now, because I've been doing some fight related content on Instagram. When I had a client fight, Rico Verhoeven just fought Alexander Usyk, and it was a great fight. There's things like that I just want to comment on, because I have so much experience in the fight world, and that's like my biggest passion since I was a kid. My dad used to take me to the hood in St. Louis on like a Tuesday night to watch amateur boxing. I remember one time one of the ring card girls was my babysitter growing up. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know they were going to be there, but like, it's those situations of like, for me, I love the game enough that being in the background gave me so much knowledge. Now I want to just be able to speak freely. I used to always have to worry about like what client I was going to piss off, or, you know what I mean? What client has beef with somebody who just fought, and what I should say or not say. So I'm learning that I can come out of my shell and just do things I enjoy, and God willing, the right thing pops off.
Look, at this point, everyone talks smack, not that bad, but just about everything and anyone. And it's like you either take it personal or you don't. And if you do, is it because it's the truth and the
Well, it's
reality?
hard when you're representing people though, because it's like,
Yeah.
like I have insider knowledge on a lot of things that are going on. And it's like, so now that I've kind of removed myself from that mostly, I'm like, all right, now I can just give my real commentary about things that I think are important
Well,
from the
you should.
lens of somebody who knows how it really works on the inside.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do need to bring it back. I think that people are going to enjoy it, and you need to do something. But yeah, the time commitment and the energy right now too. You said, because there's times where I've done shows and I wake up and something happens throughout that day, and I'm just like, man, I wish something happened. So because I won't cancel the show unless like it needs to,
Yeah,
but the energy sometimes is not there, and you have to like mentally reset yourself, especially if you're going to have a guest, because we are energy human beings and people will feel your vibe. And my
100%.
job is to make my guests feel super comfortable and open up, and not for me, but for the audience, for the people watching, for the people that want to understand their story. And because you never know what you say is how it's going to relate to that person. Because
For
I've gotten
sure.
DMs, every single guest that comes on, I will get a DM from somebody and say, hey, this is what I liked about that interview, this is what I learned, and they were so relatable, and etc. And I'm like, okay, cool, keep going.
Not to
So
throw it
that's
back on the faith pitch, but I feel like that's the thing, is like, you never know what one word, if like, for me, I have to bring positive energy, because you don't
yes.
know who's having what kind of day, or you don't know, one conversation can change somebody's life one way or the other, whether it's a connection, whether it's just you giving somebody hope, or like how people don't remember what you do, they remember how you made them feel. And
Yeah.
that's the most important thing.
Oh my gosh, yes. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know if that moment they were listening to your story when you were talking about faith and they felt something. It's like they felt that energy, that light, and now it's like you give them hope. Keep going.
100%. That's it.
But
I
okay.
couldn't do it all day every day like you do. You're a killer.
No, I only
Not
do
all
it
day
3
every day, but
times.
doing it multiple days a week, listen, that's a different game. But
I do
bless
it
you.
3 times a week, and, it's like if you're the same type of person, that I am, like, I truly am an introvert with extrovert, because I do social media, but it's draining, especially because I do feel you have to have that, positive, and a lot of people say that I'm very nice, but I choose to be nice, because of what I've been through, what life has handed to me. Because if I'm not nice, oh my god, there's a whole different side of me that you do not wanna know.
But I tell my
And
daughter that. I tell her that you can't, not to cut you off, but I tell her, like, you
Mhm.
can't don't bring your energy. Like, something
Mhm.
happened to you today. I'm sure that's not great, but like that doesn't mean you get to treat somebody badly because you're in a bad mood today. Like you need to take you need to refresh your energy when you talk to people because they don't need to carry that weight of someone else's negativity that they put on you. You know what I mean? And like trying to explain that to a 9-year-old is a little difficult. But
It is. So, you know who Joel Osteen is?
mhm,
Uh, okay, so he used to, back in the day, I don't read his books anymore, but I read one of his books and I do not remember what it's called. But one of his stories that really stuck with me and an example that he gave is that human beings, we are like trash cans. So, it's like you never know when there's, it's or we're like dumpster trucks, and you never know how much trash is being dumped on us. It's being dumped on us, it's being
yeah,
dumped on us, it's being dumped on us. And one day, you're so full that you have to dump on somebody else. So when somebody dumps on you for no reason, and they're upset, they're angry, you never know what they're going through. And sometimes this is why we got to give people grace because you don't know how much trash they're carrying. And when I read
100%.
that actually gave me a perspective of how to start seeing people. Now, if you're always an a-hole and you're always just rude for no reason, then you got bigger problems than that. But like if it's out of your character and one day you snap, or I'm at the store and somebody snaps, I see them like a dumbstruck, not, and I think like,
Yeah.
maybe they just are overloaded today and they just wanted to
But
shit
that's
on you.
giving people grace. But like I had to explain that to her one day recently because she was having a bad day. And I just remember telling her like exactly that. It's like you got to give people grace because you're gonna have bad days sometimes too. And you just have to understand that 90% of the time, unless you directly did something intentionally to bother somebody, you can't carry that with you. You gotta let it go. You know what I mean? You gotta let it just be what it is.
No, and I learned early, that we are in control of our emotions. We are in control of how we want to make of our output. So if anybody's putting negative input, it's our decision whether we're going to allow that, or do we remove ourselves from that situation and not allow that negativity to enter. But I
For
think
sure.
once I started teaching my youngest daughter about that, it's like you are responsible of your output and don't let anybody else, come and tell you otherwise. But it's easier said than done. But when you begin to practice that you are in control of your feelings or emotions or how you want to feel, then you can eliminate a lot of that negativity. Again, it's easier said than done, but it takes
I mean, it
practice.
is, but it took me a few years of cannabis and other things to just stay balanced.
Yep. I'm
Hold on
gonna
one second.
um,
Somebody's knocking on my door. One second.
okay. Guys, I'm here with E. We're gonna be wrapping it up in a little bit.
Sorry, it's my daughter. She's yelling at me for not. She's like, I haven't seen you all day. See, now it's your fault. I'm putting that energy on
Oh
you.
my goodness. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up because I know we're going to be hitting up to the 2 hours, and I know you typically give me an hour, hour and a half, but I think we're making up, right, for last time that we were
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
But
yeah.
do you
We're
have a
good
quick few seconds for rapid fire questions?
for sure. Let's go. I'm ready.
Okay. UFC or boxing?
UFC for sure.
Contracts
I
or
love
courtroom?
boxing, but
Okay.
it's been ruined recently. UFC is more pure in my mind.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay, so courtroom or contracts?
contracts for sure.
Bitcoin or NFTs?
NFTs.
Street Fighter or Call of Duty?
As an adult, Call of Duty. As a kid, Street Fighter was everything.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Private life or public platform?
Private life for sure.
Loyalty or ambition?
Loyalty.
Old school networking or Web3 communities?
Old school networking.
Fight night at home or live cage side seats?
Is my client fighting or not?
We'll
Am,
say
am I going? Okay, well, here's the answer. If I go as a fan, I love going to the fights live as a fan where I can just enjoy it and there's no stress. When you're
yes.
at a fight and it's one of your close friends who you're like, it's like a brother or sister to you, and they walk into a cage and you have no control over them getting kicked in the face and losing their teeth or not, my heart rate goes crazy. My watch thinks I'm working out. Like I prefer to watch at home when it's my own client because it's just so stressful for me. But
Okay.
I enjoy going when it's not that level of anxiety.
Fair enough. Creator freedom or corporate security?
Creative freedom.
Legacy or wealth?
Mm, that's a hard one. As a dad, I want to say wealth because if I'm wealthy, I can take care of everybody. But legacy is an ego driven thing. You know, I don't care if anybody knows or doesn't know what I've done. I think, but I do, and that's the problem. So maybe I pick legacy.
Legacy, yes. Now,
How
do
you're
you
remembered is more important than having money. I'll say that.
yeah. Now, do you wanna leave us with any parting words of wisdom?
I don't really have many words of wisdom, but I would say, whatever it is you want to do, you just got to go do it. I think being an agent for me, when I told people originally, they're all like, oh, everybody says that. Nobody ever does it. And like I got licensed on my own. I went out on my own. I didn't know what the fuck the next day looked like. I didn't know anything, but I made it happen by just pushing, just patience and persistence. So whatever it is you want to do, whether it's streaming, whether it's content, no matter what it is, the only thing stopping you from doing it is you investing time. So you may as well start investing time today. And whenever that's going to pan out, it's going to pan out. But whatever you want to do, there's nothing stopping you. Just go get it.
So never don't stop, don't quit. I do wanna give you a special thank you for sharing not just your expertise, but your perspective, your story, all
No
of,
worries.
the little bits of nuggets, wisdom, and even your faith, and also thank the audience for joining us with this conversation, and you especially for taking some time out of your life, your family
No
life
worries.
and your work, and I know that it's not easy sometimes getting on these, but I really do
You
appreciate
made
you
it a
guys.
lot easier by being, you ask good questions, and good conversations are the best thing about life. So I appreciate you having me twice.
Absolutely. Who knows? Maybe a third time in the future, where we can talk more about AI agents.
For sure. We'll make it happen, but I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Until next time, I am Leslie Mota and this is Ezquire. Keep learning, keep growing, and stay unscripted. Bye, guys.